I think I'm in a loss of words actually. but just to take a little bit, I'm from the painting industry as well. Just add a little. Mr. Bhatta has, we've talked about the casual painting because we have achieved, we managed to get the GI for casual painting. There's also another side which, little known painting called the coconut painting. Primarily was made all over Goa, but now the last stronghold in South Goa, it's almost dying, but it's still there. But what is interesting is that I decided to go on a whole quest to find out how many kinds, how many expressions of feni there are. So there are two basic ingredients: the casual feni made with the casual fruit, and you have the coconut feni made from the toddy of the coconut. But what is interesting is we've got more expressions. We got so in Goa we had a very interesting culture. You had you basically went to the taverna every day. So your taverna, your barman was actually your doctor. You had a heart problem, he made garlic feni for you. It's terrible, but yeah, but it was medicine. So you had a toothache, he made clove feni for you. You had a body ache, you had dukshiri feni for you. So you had while the rest of India drank jeera water, we had jeera feni. So I mean, so it was quite interesting. Cough for ginger feni. So I counted 18 fenis. But I actually tasted only 17. The 18th feni was the mythical feni. I've never tasted it, but I'm sure somebody would have heard about this feni. It's called Kalyanso feni. Anybody heard of Kalyanso feni? Yeah, of course. He's the distiller himself. So Kalyanso feni, I mean, that's Sylvester from Sheelaban, Vasco. He comes from a distilling family. And this is what I mean to say. Very few people know about this feni. It's like a mythical feni. So this feni was apparently used if you had if you got TB or bronchitis or some really serious respiratory illness, and you basically died back then. So basically what they did, they got, I mean, from what I've heard and multiple sources, they actually picked up a jackal. I mean, you kill the jackal, you skin it, you put the jackal into the pot with coconut, and you distill a feni called Kalyanso feni. And this was the most expensive, the most prized feni, and that would actually clear your bronchitis. I think you could howl like a fox, maybe with that little thing. I mean, but that's the most interesting feni I've ever come across. But I thought it was a joke, and I thought the guy was drunk when he first told me, but this actually, the story is actually, I mean, heard it from multiple sources, mainly the old people, the traditional distillers, but it's, I don't know if I'd ever tried it, so anyway. So the last person we have...
Just 1 second.
Yes.
I must congratulate Desmond Nazareth, because single-handedly he has been able to promote agave and also Mahua spirit throughout India now. And we as an association, I am the president, I must accept that we have failed in spite of having GI for the last 10 years. But we are making effort now, you know, going around to Susega. We are making efforts, and we hope the people will also respond to the efforts that we make. Thank you.
The last speaker we have today is Rahul Srivastava. I know him as an academic, and the first time I met him, I was so nervous. I actually took down notes before meeting him. But he's a very lovely person, ex-Xavier like me, St. Xavier's Bombay. He's a co-author, he's a social anthropologist, and he's co-authored a book called The Tribal Identity and Minority Status. So I won't take too much, but what he's going to be doing is he's going to be talking about the social impact of empowering communities and how the economies work with spirits. It's going to be not specific to any kind of spirit, but general how we should actually work. Because a little about what Mr. Bhatta talked, when you see feni and you see any other spirit, what feni has been able to do is still keep a very traditional process, but take it to the next commercial level. So we still wait for the cages to fall on the ground, or we still use an earthen pot with using termite, clay from a termite mound to seal. But we basically transition from a very traditional process, a very tribal, local, rural perspective to bringing it up. And this is something very interesting that Rahul will speak about.
Thanks, Ansel. We have 1 hour or 0 hour, so lots to fill in. I won't take more than 15 minutes, but what I would really like to also explain is my own presence on this stand, because I'm not part of any formal spirit industry, but at least so far, You never know. But at the same time, also I'm very happy to be in this discussion, which has actually brought such interesting people together. You have, friends from Assam who have come down. You have, Anirudh who's come from Kanha. You have, in the audience, we had some guests who had come from Gadchiroli in Maharashtra. And they are members of the local tribal community, and they heard about this and the whole Mahua story inside in a narrative which they never expected. And what they also found to be, and what we all, I think, ultimately will celebrate is the real invisible spirit which has actually brought these conversations together, and that is Goa itself. And I'll explain why. It is only in Goa that we can even have a discussion like this, and there's a very, very special reason for it. It's a very small state, but it actually has produced very different paradigms to think about many things, whether it's about space, whether it's about the city. Formerly, I work in urban areas. I always look at Goa as a very different kind of urbanity. It expresses a very different kind of urbanity, in which the village, the city, they all work together. The forest becomes part of the landscape. This is very special. And I think this very special foundation is also the reason why the debate has expressed itself in a very special way. You must remember that Mahua as a spirit has a very, very problematic history. It's got nothing to do with any, you cannot imagine what outside, the way we understand the location of spirits in our cultural framework in Goa is totally different from what spirits actually mean, particularly alcohol, in the rest of British India. Let's call it British India. Because British India did create a very tight grip for the way in which spirits have to be understood. The kind of morality, the kind of prejudiced eye which the rest of India in fact looks at spirit is something which seems completely absent in Goa, and we are here very unself-conscious of that. It is that unself-consciousness which can make a debate which actually is quite astounding, that we can actually talk about making Mahua a national spirit, and then you can have the Feni lobby saying no, it should be Feni. This is actually a shadow play which is already jumping way ahead, because in most parts of the country, Mahua is still not anywhere close to Feni in terms of its sort of commercial foundation. It is still very much produced in a shadow zone. It is still stuck in laws which have been created very specifically to cripple it. So it is not like, in fact, even Assam has the celebration which which Assam talked about, and what the earliest showcased is something based on local pride, which is not something which you will find in many parts of tribal India as yet. And the reason for that is persecution. There is a history of persecution. So while on one hand we would love to have, and that's what I love most about Goa, that we can actually have these debates, we can actually say, should Feni be or should it be Mahua, but they are totally different histories. The advantage Feni has is tremendous rootedness in local history, a tremendous confidence. All the presentations, in fact the earlier presentation on Feni came from a very special place, effortlessly proud, confident, where it comes from, mixed community histories. There is, easily speak about the fact that it's also exotic, but it's also our own. This, in fact, the whole language in which the presentation was made is a testimony to what Goa represents in terms of a very different way in which it thinks. And what also is also interesting that Goa allowed for Desmond to emerge, and then he brings out his own the special way of dialoguing and discussing with the excise commissioner, and bringing in at least for now a categorization which he's pushing for IML, which is actually a very clever play, because technically it's still IMFL, but you can't call Mahua IMFL. It's not foreign at all. In fact, it is completely indigenous. So in a way, you're already pushing for an argument where you're leapfrogging all the moral sort of landmines which actually exist into making Mahua anywhere close to Feni. And what is always special is that, what always remains special about Feni is that it was the first. It came from a different cultural space. It came from a space of tremendous confidence. It came from a space of even a legislative framework which never persecuted it. But Mahua has right from the start been part of persecution. In the 19th century, you had British laws which specifically banned Mahua from being made because it wanted to integrate the tribal communities as laborers. Many tribal communities who were very much part of the modern project, they wanted to be part of a modern project, could not even conceive of becoming part of what we would take for granted as being modern. Right? Why? Because it was important that they be reduced to the category of labor. It was unskilled. People were asked to cut down trees were burnt. So we're talking about that kind of history. So it's very special in a sense to see Mahua as a model, but you have to know all what has gone behind it to understand why it's there. So I would say that the real hero of today's discussion is Goa itself as a space, which is such a different space and which allows for these discussions to happen. It is a space which has given tremendous confidence to Feni, and that's why Feni always remains special in the story of spirits in India. And at the same time, it also allowed for Desmond to emerge and to push for the narrative of Mahua as a spirit, and now he's already pushing for it as a national spirit. But I'll say well, we have to first get it even recognized, before we can go. Yeah. It will be an inspirational spirit, but also importantly, and what was the most special was to actually see friends from Gadchiroli who had come down here just because they had heard the discussion was actually taking place. They gave them this Hatikar, who's an economist and who's also trying to sort of push for making a Mahua. You must remember right now that most people cannot actually make more than 5 liters of Mahua in Maharashtra. In other states, it's a little more flexible. When we went, as part of our own research, my collective, which I'm part of, we found that people were demonstrating Mahua and the making of Mahua, and they're also telling us that, well, tomorrow the police can come and take us to jail, because that is really where the context of how Mahua is being produced, where it is still illegal to even think of taking it out of a domestic space. So we are talking about, and there's also a huge kind of surreal underground economy which has been created in many states in India, where the distribution of Mahua flowers is completely taken over by middlemen. People who have warehouses, people who have access to stocking, and then you ultimately sell the dried Mahua flower at greater profits to the same tribal communities who have sold it to you. So it is locked in this space right now. So there is no question so far of talking about the commercialization of it as yet in most Indian states. So that is why it's so special that when one heard about Mahua being sold in Goa, and I met Desmond, it was very special because, well, in a completely unself-conscious way, because he also operates from Goa, he managed to bring out these, the contradictions. He completely ignored the anachronisms, and here proudly brings it. So it's going to be a very special moment when we have that. At the same time, I would say it's very important not to create a kind of a narrative of this versus that. They're coming from different spaces altogether, and that and what is the most interesting thing about Goa, and what is really what we have to learn from even the business culture in Goa. When I met Hansel or Rini and them, I was introduced to Urak and Feni by my friend Sunil, who's also here. Cecil for Urak, Cecil for Feni. I have to be very clear about that. The whole introduction to a completely different history. I don't come from here, and I'm from elsewhere. So it was an introduction to a completely different sensibility, and a different way in which we can look at the spirits. And I feel that this particular special location of Goa is something which we have to understand in a deeper way. For me, even business culture in Goa is very different. It is linked to lifestyle, it is linked to history. It is not about making pure profits. This is a paradigm shift, because the rest of the country, we have a different business culture. We have a culture which is hyper-specialized, in which you have professional communities working on trading for centuries, who control the process of business. So where you can actually completely have an abstract relationship to a product. Many people who do business in India, rest of India, don't even discuss a product. They are interested in the trade of it. That is the larger matrix from within which business actually emerges. So what really one has to learn from Goa is also this very special business culture it has. And I think it's an important business culture. It is rooted in local pride. It is rooted in a certain kind of confidence in itself. And it looks at resources around it. It work at very small in terms of physical size, but it has a huge, in a sense, I would say, psychological footprint or a cultural footprint, which goes way beyond its physical size. And that's something which we need to appreciate. So what locality means, how can you strengthen it? And that's why the Feni Association is an important one, because here is again a kind of a business arrangement which is very proud of itself, which in many parts of India is not so common. You rarely see the spirit industry being so confident about it in other parts of India. And this local business culture ultimately has to be exported. This is what, why when our friends from Gadchiroli came over here and they heard what is happening, they want to go back and they want to start something similar. But it's not just Mahua they're doing, they're taking away business culture as well. They're taking away a way of being, feeling proud of what is their own local resource. And that is something which we must not forget. So I think I'll just stop here and we can continue the discussion after that.
Thank you, and a lot of questions, a lot of people who've spoken, thrown up ideas. I'm sure you're going to have lots more animated discussions. We're going to throw it open up to everyone to ask questions. Let's be to the point. Yeah. So you can direct it to the whole panel or to an individual itself. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, so apart from drinks, one more variation is there of the alcoholic they are taking. That is brewed coconut, that is brewed hazelnut. Is cut into pieces and one piece taken in the pot. The tuna is taken. This is also an intoxicant. This is very common in Assam. Lot of people taking. So what is your comment on this? It's called only in Assam and nowhere else, I believe. Please comment on this. Because I live in Assam for 15 years.
Okay.
This I know very well.
In Assam, it is kind of what?
Did you say aracanut or coconut?
Aracanut is
Supari.
Supari. It is actually brewed. The fruit is ground for a long time. It is taken, cut into pieces. One piece taken with one or two bitter leaves, torn, and then the tuna is put, eaten. This is also intoxicant. This is another sort of intoxicant.
Yeah.
Actually, we're talking of alcohol here. That is something completely different. That is Goa. Goa is supari. You're not talking supari here. While I do take your point back.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Ashok here.
I noticed that most of the rice beverages that are made, traditional rice beverages that are talked about out here are made from cooked rice. Does nobody make liquor in the way that, for example, whiskey is made, where the rice is malted and then crushed and fermented and things like that in India? Do you know?
Not that I know of. Rice has always been cooked and fermented. I don't think any malting happens in India at all of any grain. In the northeast, perhaps some people have tried doing it as an experiment, but that's not something traditional. And yes, but you can do that in colder climates. People can experiment, but I've never seen that being done as yet. We can and why I don't know really.
Anybody else? Anything? Yeah.
When you look at YouTube, the videos for the Indian alcoholic beverages, the procedure look very primitive and most of them are very unhygienic. Now, why we cannot integrate the present-day technology with the Indian beverages? And in that case, what will happen is that, for example, beer and whiskey, one is distilled and one is fermented. Now, can it be integrated with these with small modification so that we have something world standard? But most of the YouTube, even some of the videos what we saw, they are much better. But the things what you see in the YouTube, you will get a complete impression, very primitive way, that especially Mahua. Now Mahua, there was a proposal for Mahua, but Mahua, Muslim Mission Nazareth, his factory is a much better technologically advanced. But otherwise, the way it is done is a very primitive. And another question is, now normally when you ferment it, there are two kinds of yeast. One is that this deep, and another is the surface fermentation. Can this same technology be used here, or what kind of fermentation is used for rice beer?
I'll let the panel answer that, but just before, I would like to add my 2 cents. When I take people to show them feigning, one of the first, I'm a little like more experienced after 1 year of taking people to farms and showing people how feigning is made. At the onset, I always say feigning is a primitive spirit. It's an indigenous spirit, it's our local spirit. And this is how we make it. There's no bones about it. You don't like the smell, you don't like how it looks. Unfortunately, that's how it's made. And one thing very interesting with cashew, I didn't realize until I took a foreigner to show him my distillery. Cashew, when it oxidizes, it turns black. So it leaves a black look all around. And for a lot of people, black is basically, I'm not wearing black, but black is basically is dirty, is bad. And so when they see black, they say, oh, it's bad. If it was white, it would have been different. So that was a very interesting perspective we saw. Another perspective I saw is, maybe we had French maidens stamping my cashews, it would look very nice, but we've got dark-skinned men in gumboots, maybe with broken toenails doing it. So that was something we had to actually do, explain to the food and drugs. When Mr. Bhatta and I had to actually go and explain to them that Peony is a distilled product, it's not a fermented product. Yes, it might look unhygienic, but this is, you have to be respectable, you have to respect the community where we come from. You can't say the West is better, the East is less, or the South is not as good as the North. And those kind of discussions don't come into play because you have to respect the culture and where we come. And if at all Peony had to change, I'm speaking of Peony, it would have changed in its 400-year-old history, but or 200-year-old history. It would have changed, but this is how we are. I'll put it up to anybody else who will comment on that.
What I want to say is that all so-called international spirits that we all love and pay a lot of money for started as country spirits with similar issues like you mentioned. So you're absolutely right. In fact, what I have done with this Alcoholic Standards of India is to create postal standards that are pegged to international standards. Country spirit remains as a category, and the bulk of spirit will be probably continue to be made in that fashion. But what it allows for now is a certain group of people to up the game and create, starting with all the issues you mentioned, full cleanliness and hygiene, ways of distilling that gives you a certain profile of the product. It will be different from well-made country spirits. In fact, I am offering to teach, go and spend time with people in tribal areas. Like gentlemen came and left early today from Maharashtra. Say, come and help us to up the game, make really good stuff. They should be able to bump their levels very easily, and I'm encouraging them to push the notion of a regional heritage spirit from Mahua in each state. And then if there are sufficient states that then have Mahua as the regional heritage spirit, then one can make a case for a national spirit. I'm leaping ahead, I'm looking at my end goal to have at least one national spirit, maybe more, because India is a big country. You know how many things are made here. There's no question of competition between various things. It will be a matter of logic, ultimately. How widely is it made, how well is it made, how consistently can we have a profile that tequila I've seen made in villages in Mexico, made like same unhygienic issues and made poorly. And then I've watched the same tequila and similar size institutions made at world-class levels. Stuff that I can't even taste in bottled products. So you are right, and there is in fact a need for such two-level kind of approach, if not more than.
What's modernizing? bullies, then use the country legal status. Because the country legal, if it is a country legal, it cannot be even sold outside your state.
Yeah, so you can have both categories at the same time. So currently, there's both categories exist. There is country liquor, and there is also IML version of Mahua at least. I mean, Feni has not done that. It is Goa has declared it to be heritage, but other states don't care about that and don't allow it to be sold. But Feni is currently being exported abroad already. It's already, I guess, being tested by international authorities. So it's kind of done that in its own way.
Once it is heritage, you can sell it outside the state?
No, it has to be recognized by the state. So it's a state-by-state painful process. I had to convince two states, Andhra Pradesh to allow me to manufacture Mahua and Goa to allow me to package and sell Mahua as a non-country spirit. That is the breakthrough that I made, which now other people can point to and say they are allowing it, perhaps our states will allow it. It becomes now they have an example, a precedent.
Mr. On to your question again. See whether you have good standards or what are the good standards. Whether you want to have standards, you're really comparing a shack which produces excellent food and a 5-star hotel which probably produces food as well. Both are tasty. Yeah. Just because it's a shack and it's not very nice looking does not mean the product is bad. And this is where I disagree with Desmond, because there are two clear narratives here. And you cannot ignore the shack narrative. You cannot ignore a rural narrative which is far, far older than your beautiful steel, pot stills.
No, there is an expect the consistency in quality, but here
it's a handcrafted.
Just by
It's a handcrafted product. Your handicraft will have a variation as long as the variation is within certain specified limits. Just like the GI has given a band. So you cannot say tomorrow that no, this is bad just because you have seen nice whiskey distilleries that the rest of the product that the country made is bad. It's a different narrative. You might like that narrative, the rest might not like the narrative, but that does not mean that your narrative should dominate the rest of the narrative. That's all I'm saying.
As I said, there's room for both narratives. I think there's the country narrative, but there's also the international quality narrative that other people have to buy. They have to buy the story. They have to know where it came from, and they also know the difference. So, for example, now he has brought some samples which have a wonderful smoky, earthy kind of feel to Goa, which I will never get in my process. However, when somebody abroad is buying it, if they buy small quantities from this place and that place, they'll get a very different taste profile based on how it's made. Whether it's in metallic butties or wooden butties, it'll give you a different feel, what kind of fuel you use, whether you clean the pot in between. All these count in the final flavor. First distillate, in fact, determines your second and third and so on. Those are certain things you cannot get rid of. So there's a scope of both narratives, and we have not to speak it.
What my two panelists have already explained two things very nicely, but I just want to get one more thing here, particularly about Dudima. Dudima is something, two persons, you use same ingredients, same room temperature, but the product can be different. It cannot be the same. It depends on how you process it. It's the basic of the hands and the knowledge. And about the cleanliness, I would say that in our society, it is prepared with utmost cleanliness. Even the thought of sour things can turn Dudima sour. So you just imagine the kind of cleanliness people follow while preparing Dudima. So that's all I just want to hear.
I believe that if you say a few wrong sentences, it will go sour. That's the belief, right? But there's a strong belief there. Absolutely.
That's where the
and in any distillation or any brewing process, there's something called a hand. And that hand matters because each hand differs. And each hand will give you a different profile. But we have to recognize that we can't level it all. And once you level it all, then what are you producing? You're producing soap.
That's why people want untouched by hand.
But then there is no hand.
Gentlemen, just taking over from gentlemen, the hygiene part you said, I fully agree with you. Being small and being country doesn't mean that you should not be hygienic. That's a part of it you said, and I agree. Regarding consistency of batches, I don't agree with you. It may be different small batches, but the technique is such that it ultimately evolves into a consistent product. If the artisan is good, the distiller is good, he knows exactly how much of the fermented juice to be added, how much of the firewood needs to be, fire temperature needs to be. We don't have a gauge there. We don't have a temperature gauge, etc. But in mere sight, mere feel, he is able to derive the temperature required. And the ultimate product is plus minus 1920.
I just said that possibly the soil where trees grow differs from place to place, state to state. So obviously the farm also has different sort of.
Yes, I mean the terroir, or I mean they call it terroir, and terroir changes, climate changes. I mean I have seen Feni's made in Valpoi, and then you go down to the coastal part of Goa, South Goa, the Feni changes, North Goa consistency changes. But there's a general consistency in what a Feni is defined as. And as part of the association and what Mr. Minion spoke about, Mr. Bhakta and myself and a few others here are part of that committee. So what we have been trying to do is, we can't define and say that my brand of Feni from South Goa is better than the Feni that Mr. Bhakta makes in Nanora and Picholi. It is slightly different. The taste profile is different, but generally the same. So what we have done is we have not drawn straight lines. We've kept variations for what a Feni should stand for, what a Burak should stand for. But we've also set defined processes as well, because a process will also define what the end product will be.
So Mahua, I can say that it depends on the soil, the climate, the rainfall. It all sort of gets together to define how much sugar does the Mahua flower have in that year, and that would vary from place to place. So parts of MP might have good rainfall. Mahua is very good, so you get a different product profile. You go towards Maharashtra, drier climate, may not be as So process plus these kinds of the raw materials will always make a difference, and that depends on not just the terroir, not just the soil, but the climate, environment.
Also in grapes, there are varietals, as you will know. I have tasted Mahua in different parts of central India, the flower, and found some that were extraordinary. And it was like, could I get 100 tons of this? And you can't. So I'm not. There will be a time that Mahua becomes important like Feni. A time when people do make varietals, based on regional varietals, and I look forward to this.
And the year he tasted this great, Mahua, next year the same tree may not give him the same flower. So there's a huge variation.
So the thing that interests me is one thing that making a spirit, India's national spirit, I'm proud Indian and all that. So my point being, we have beauty distillers here, we have Mahua distillers, we have someone who really likes shooting up. But when we are talking in a panel of us being us, and the whole of India, where there's Kesar, Kasturi, in service presentation, there was toddy in many of the places. So like, for example, at some point of time there was an argument making khichdi the national dish of India, where we treat khichdi as the last thing we intend to eat. So my question here is, what is the argument on making a spirit a national spirit? Like for example, in Gujarat, they would like to make chas the national drink or something where there's no alcohol at all. So do we still argue about the fact that we want the national spirit, or we collectively come, and if at all we do, how do we get one thing to be the national drink as such?
Very good point. I mean, there's no requirement for a national spirit. India has survived quite a long time without it. So, what people ask when you go abroad, visitors to India, what is uniquely Indian? Right? Uniquely Indian, something that grows here. All those things, I had a laundry list of attributes that I was. And we really don't have much to say. All we can say is India is a very complicated, wide country, lots of cultures, lots of stuff. We get this, that, and the other, here, there, and everywhere. But when they say, what can I buy and take home? Really, you don't have a whole lot to point out. I'm sitting in Delhi airport and I have nothing to take back from India. I have nothing to come in Chennai, but nothing to take back. Some other place, I've got visitors from abroad, I want to show them. I really don't have anything to point out and say, this is truly Indian. So, all I'm saying is regional heritage spirits, there's no question, there should be strong efforts to strengthen them, to improve the quality, the look and feel, so that we have something to offer that is reasonably consistent within parameters. Because otherwise people won't trust it. And it will just remain where it has remained for decades, if not centuries.
Yes, that is two parts. I really feel that I'm a little concerned that the debate gets into the space. I'm a little concerned that this whole debate becomes ultimately about representation. Because this is something that we have seen in many fields, and then it really becomes problematic. There is no reason why we can't tell people that, well, we have 3 or 4 rings. There's no reason why, because we're a big country. It's important to frame right from the start the whole idea of a bouquet, of choices, rather than this notion of what's the national spirit. Because, like I said earlier, that the Mahua story, it's already kind of, it's a bit too early to talk about that. At the same time, one has to really encourage and validate what you are doing as far as the process of introducing Mahua to the national and global market is. So there's no question of that. At the same time, it doesn't have to be twinned in with this argument that where should it be Zengi or should it be Mahua at all, because all these are really part of the collective space of the subcontinent, and India is big enough to talk about that. So I just like to say it.
I object to the word spirit. Why just spirit? I mean, why not a brute? So why are we categorizing it just by to a distill? Okay, because we have really huge diversity. Let's say North India with rice brews, actually nobody else has. And so it could be a bouquet. It could be a bouquet of spirits and brews. And given the way rest of India does not grow up, the rest of India thinks, I don't really think we'll ever have a kind of representation of our brews in dishes. It will take probably another 20-25 years to get there.
In my experience, most Indians when they come here from overseas or friends who are living overseas always ask for a bottle of old monk. And that's a very popular thing which everybody likes from it. And I think that's already established itself very well.
I have nothing against old monk. It's one of my favorite things to drink as well. However, people say, how is old monk made? What do you answer? You have an answer for that? You don't have it because it's made using ENA with some flavors. Now, is that a great story to tell? Is that deeply rooted in Indian culture? Is it like something that really we can be proud of? When we flavor something and it...
Why not be proud of something that is...
Yeah, but we can't talk of it as a national or a regional spirit or any damn spirit. You can make it sitting in Timbuktu also if you get the flavor and ENA.
No, but not every rum tastes like...
No, all these McDowell's and all like lookalikes in the same fashion.
That would be for
If you go by the formula, any rum can be made like that. It's a simple formula. It's a very listed mathematical formula. And if you see how it is being made, you will not drink it again.
Just to give another scale to the story, Old Monk and Mahua are really sort of, like Batman and the Joker. Because, in many ways, Mahua's decline and persecution was accompanied by, a whole legal framework which allowed Old Monk to rise. Because Old Monk was part of the whole colonial project. So, if you want to just give a darker spin, that's the other side.
Gentlemen, coming back to the call for the national ring, it's just for us to daydream. Because ultimately the main parameter that would be required is the political support. Getting in India is not going to be easy.
Can I say a word?
Yes, John.
Now that everybody is here, the learned and conversation, one.
It's already close to your mouth.
Yeah, just one question. Why do we still have a lot of misnomers?
She says, why are we having so many misnomers and misinformation about training, about Indian spirits?
You see, we still call Indian-made alcohol Indian-made imported liquor. It's not imported. It's from, why do we call it foreign? It's made in India. Why isn't the policy guys thinking and coming up with the corrections? I mean, who's working on it? Who's supposed to work on it? Is it the IS officers? Is it the liquor lobby? Is it you guys, manufacturers, producers getting together and setting up a set of Bible, dictionary? I mean, who's going to work on that?
Yes,
it's already happening. I mean, in some states now are throwing out this IMFL label and calling it IML, Indian made liquor. But they're reserving for the same ENA flavored stuff. And in the absence of any heritage category, they are throwing Mawa in there. They will probably throw Penny in there as well. If it's to be sold outside of the stock market.
Exactly, that's where I'm coming in from.
It's absolutely important at the moment. I think what's more important is that Indian-made liquor should branch off into heritage and this so-called flavored stuff, which is Indian-made foreign liquor, properly made. There's foreign liquor that's Indian-made in our own Indian style, which is flavoring.
Yeah, it's Indian-made heritage liquor. Northeast is going to come up. Fortunately, we have a group of. We're fortunate to have some group of very young politicians who are allowing these things to come out of the prosecution and getting into a commercial venture. Enough of Northeast has been prosecuted all throughout the ages. Now let's look at the middle sector. The sector that tribal.
See, the only issue with alcohol in India is it's in the constitution that it is going to be a dark topic. It's not going to be a topic that they can actually talk about. Article 47 is corrected me. And whenever we discuss any, that's why we don't have anybody who's excise today. I mean, they cannot officially come out, and there are a lot of complications with that. That's number one. Second thing, these IMFL, country liquor, I mean, foreign liquor, these are only categories from a perspective of taxation as well as transport. So so the government they don't look at liquor as whether it's Indian or foreign or country liquor. They look at taxation. In Goa, IMFL is 22%, foreign liquor is 22%, and country liquor is 5%. So for them, that's how they look at it. They don't look at it for what the actual word means. That is just a category.
So isn't the industry stalwarts or the people who are getting into the social sector or with the knowledgeable people maybe write up a handbook, a guideline for the policy decision makers? Because they themselves will definitely not. Half of the IS officers who are in the excise department are transferred. Anybody who's going to rock the boat gets transferred. So maybe it's time people who are the actual leaders, who are actually affected by these decisions, taxation, transportation, being able to sell out of your regional area, maybe they need to come up with a handbook of guidelines for the benefit of maybe the people who are persecuted. Now, when it comes to the question of people who've been making Mahua being under persecution, I mean, Goa is a very inclusive, liberated, and I think one of the blessed.
Yes. No, the idea of this discussion was to start the ball rolling, which Desmond has done. We've done it, doing it in different cities. They're doing it in Bangalore now, someone else. So now what happens is it's just now we're trying to we've got a policy maker, the excise commissioner, ex-excise commissioner. So we're getting people slowly involved. So that will take time, but it will happen.
I just wanted to say that if we can have 22 languages plus we can also have as many heritage liquors as we are discussing that here. I wanted to ask Mr. Uttam that I noticed that the blue wine which you are talking about, the rice wine, is it largely Are the women involved in brewing this wine, and are the women also the imbibers of this wine?
Thank you, ma'am, for this question. In fact, it is the women folk who actually is carrying forward this whole art of brewing in our society. So that's the reason why when we first came up with the festival, the Dima Festival, we kind of collaborated with the Masa Adivarai Mahila Samiti. It's a women's organization of Divarai village in Haflong. And in the later editions, the Divarai village council also came up with and joined hands with us. And in the cooperative society, we have lots of shareholders from the women members of the society. So this is something which is even it's not that the men folk don't know about it, but because of the societal structure itself, is the women folk who basically engage in brewing, and they have the better knowledge of doing it.
Are they also drinking it?
Yeah, they do. There is no taboo in that. There is no taboo in that. Yeah. There is no taboo in that.
Not just in the Masa community, across India, distilling and brewing is done by women. The largest segment that does the distilling and brewing is women, because they have a traditional. It comes from mother, it comes from sister, it comes from their aunts, and they do it communally as children. They take part in the process. In some of the areas and some of the hill areas, watered down wine is given to children as a strengthener, the vitamin. So like in France, we do have such cultures in many parts of the country, and women totally dominate the manufacture and the many places the sale also. In the toddy tapping community earlier, men would climb up and down and get the toddy, women would distill it, and women would sell it.
The men would drink it.
Women would drink it as well, but men of course strangle it more sometimes.
Men folk basically engage in collecting this bark of hemra tree. So since it is in jungle, it's men folk usually they do collection of this thing. Otherwise, it's the women who does the rest of the thing, even the starting and everything done by women. And one thing that about the quality of Judima, we believe that Judima is a great disinfectant. It is smeared on the lips of newborn, whether boy or girl. It is smeared on the lips of newborn. There is a folklore around it. We actually cut short the interview in the documentary because it becomes too long. It says that originally this knowledge of use of Temra and brewing came to one particular village, and it remained with that village only. And around that time there was epidemic. And what happens when epidemic used to take place at those point of time? People flee to other villages or maybe to other safer places, and safer places means jungle. Because concentration of human being actually leads to a lot of complicated disease and all that. So they most of the time they flee to either other villages or to the jungle. So what happens is that some of the people from other villages, they seem to have come to the village. We started using Judima, and then they found that that village was totally unaffected, and everybody was surprised, like why this village is totally unaffected. And then gradually people thought that maybe because of use of this brew, probably the epidemic didn't strike the village. So that time onward they started using the brew, smearing brew on the newborn. So it has still continued. Yeah. And not even a single, as I told before, not even a single ritual from birth to death can be complete without use of Judima. It is a must. And the best variety is always, of course, given to the most respectable persons in the time of annual harvest festival, or also senior most, also if any dignitaries are visiting. So best varieties are always presented to such person. So this is very, very closely related to our social structure. And one interesting fact is that in our society we follow double clan system. We have also matrilineal clan. which is in anthropology called double descent. And so this female clan, the maternal clan, there are 42 maternal clans, and out of this 42 maternal clans, 35 maternal clans come from rice cultivars. So I know rice is a very, very close, culture with us, and it has been with us. We don't know how it is, and there is one segment of anthropologists who says that probably rice was domesticated first time in India's northeast, or maybe in the northern Burma, somewhere around that place. So it could be true, and it is very, very part of us. And as you have seen, it is totally organic. The rice that is grown, it is grown in the June field, slash and burn method in June, so there is no question of any fertilizer or anything. And all the ingredients that you see being used there is bamboo and then banana leaves, things like that. Nothing plastic or nothing like that.
One second, sir. Because you've been talking of women of central India and Assam, and I feel I should not stop talking about women of Goa. We have women in Goa also distilling.
Absolutely.
And
across the country.
And it's a fact that the distilled liquor or liquor distilled by a woman in Goa is far better than the liquor distilled by a man. I can vouch for this. And just to bring it on record, while we are talking of progressive and inclusion of liquors at the national level, etc., there is a political class which is also thinking of banning liquor. It has begun with Bihar. And the call from Bihar is already there. The rest of India also should be notified of the liquor should ban. I hope you know this.
That comes down from time to time. But for example, to extend what you were saying about, in many tribes across India, the traditional way they would disinfect after cutting the umbilical cord was with double or triple distilled alcohol, and it's still done with Goa in many parts of Central India.
In Goa, I found 3 reasons. I've got 2 distillers, both are ladies, and I run we are part of the liquor industry as well, so we supply liquor. Most of the lot of bars, especially in old parts of Margao and Vasco, where there are ladies controlling the bars. You can have a lady sitting there till about 11:30 at night and controlling all rowdy men. So it kind of made me wonder why. And then sitting with them and figuring it out. I found out that for a distiller, lady distiller, she controls the money. The number one. So the husband has to behave himself. So secondly, the husband can do his work foraging for toddy, cashews, and whereas she will be distilling. So he cannot drink on the job. And number 3 is he cannot beat her. So he cannot misbehave, he cannot misbehave at all, he cannot beat her, cannot do anything. Because she controls the liquor, she controls the money. So the whole economy is controlled by the lady. And same thing in a bar. In the bar, it is primarily no man is going to pick up a fight with the lady. Because if she starts yelling, so that's what they told me. That it is better to have a lady in the bar than a man in the bar. Because man, you can get into a fist fight, but not with the lady. So it's quite interesting that though we have a narrative that says women are also kind of put down in our country, we also have a very alcohol-related narrative that's pushed up. But this is very relevant in today's industry, today's Goa, because in the last week they've been trying to ban liquor in a few parts of Goa, which could send a very bad precedent. But that's purely from a drinking perspective, but from a purchasing perspective. Anybody else? Yes, you.
This is for you, AJ. Desmond. In terms of the process that you use for distilling mahua or making mahua, how different is it from the traditional processes? And if it is different, then does it qualify to be called the same heritage spirit as?
Yeah. So, as I said, there's always the original ways that people have made things in every country in the world. Probably starting with these little pots, earthen pots, then moving to metal pots when metal came about, and so on and so forth. It's an evolving thing. Now, if you talk of any large-scale production, ours is not even large. Ours is, I'd say, slightly it's the bottom end of the large, let's put it that way. We are the craft distillers around the world make 100,000 liters, 250,000 liters. We are in that range. So we of necessity can't be doing things with firewood, with earthen pots. These are things that can be done on a small scale and that I believe have great potential, and if they're done with certain care, they can produce excellent product. As he has, I've tasted some good stuff that he's brought me, made with those so-called primitive methods. Now, if I were to do that, I would not be able to do volume or scale. I'd have to keep it at a level of home distilling, entertain my friends, which is what I should have done actually. This is really a headache, what I've done. But I completely understand. In fact, if you go to any country, you'll find the small distilleries, the tiny ones that haven't been eliminated, making amazing stuff. Mexico, when I visited, of course, after I developed agave, I went to some of the small villages and had stuff in the tavernas there. It was better than anything I had tasted in bottles. Because they have learned how the big guys make it and they've applied it on a small scale. It's really hard to take what's done on a small scale and apply it to a large scale, like a room-sized earthen pot with firewood, big logs. So it's a different level. So now, the second part of your question is how different is it? It will be different of necessity. So there are two ways of making mawa that one sees around the country if you travel around. One is just with mawa flowers, when they are particularly sweet, and the other is mawa along with cane sugar to give some alcoholic content, but at the ferment level, not taking DNA and mixing it at the end, just to bump the alcohol strength, but at the fermented level itself. So I plan to make both kinds, and there is a significant difference that I sense. Other people may not sense it, but it does taste different, but not so much that it can't be recognized.
In some of the places in India, in some of the places in India, except Goa or Northeast, except Goa and Northeast, many of the places in India, there is a taboo against alcoholic beverages, and that is the one which is exploited by the politicians by banning in different states. Today it is Kerala, tomorrow it is Bihar, like this. So in Indian history, if you see Vedas, in Vedas we have got the Sula and Soma. Sula was nothing but beer. Soma, nobody knows what were the ingredients. It's supposed to be some hallucinated drink. But Sula was nothing but beer. So when this taboo came into this thing, that's why it just became a taboo. In most of the societies, people who are even moderately, they are
I think he's the best person. We had a great discussion once.
In the case of clearly, the colonial context is a very important time when this happened. There was also a collusion between Indian elites and the ruling authorities, because for them it was an important form of economic control. If you do not allow for local spirits to rise, they can give licenses to special distillers, and that's how, in fact, that's how a modern economy of spirits grew, and which explains the whole IMFL category, because it was a way in which they could also suppress local spirits. Goa never had that because Portuguese had a very different relationship to spirits. So that explains why there is that. But at the same time, there is a kind of, Gandhi also produced a very moralistic narrative. You also had, it's also true, they cannot completely push away the whole gender angle, because even in countries like the US, there was a women-led sort of demand for prohibition in the 1930s in Chicago. However, there's a very interesting book which my friends Luke and Cecil introduced to me on the short history of drunkenness, which is a very interesting explanation, which is very unbiased. It says that yes, women were organizing themselves because men were becoming violent by congregating in spaces which are exclusively male. Because they were attacking the saloon, they were not necessarily attacking the act of drinking. It was not combined by a puritanical approach, which happened in India. So there's a difference between changing the way in which alcohol is consumed and making it more inclusive for women and men, which is what happened. So this particular commentator talks about the fact that in New York, the nightclub emerged to replace the saloon, and the nightclub became a place where both women and men could consume alcohol together. So, but in India, because of a very different kind of elite puritanism, the prohibition movement combines with an anti-alcohol movement. This is something that was very...
about Gandhi, but Gandhi is moralism because his son, Adilal, was a complete drunkard. So,
the point is very valid that there is drunkenness, there is alcoholism, and women have a right to complain against that. Why not? So in many of the places, the movements against alcohol have come from alcoholism, and it's largely men who are responsible for that. So if that has happened, that's another narrative which you cannot deny.
Yes. I think we'll take the last question. I think Edgar. Yep, last question.
I've been an ardent training lover, and I've been following training as a passion for me. I think Hansel has gone a long way in promoting training by the various types of cocktails that he offers at his restaurants. Mr. Bhakta also and Mr. Hendricks also during the last training festival have come out with beautiful training cocktails. Mr. Nasser, I would like to ask you about Mahua. I think I need to lay my hands on one of this quickly. Yeah, I will surely. Your margarita mix is also spoiled. I really love that. It's one of my favorite drinks. But how do I drink Mahua? Can I use it as a mix in some cocktails and stuff like that?
Yeah, so Mahua is especially from my tribal people. Just as is or with water, diluted strong. As it turns out, the kind of Mahua that I am making, that's why I don't just call it Mahua, I call it DJ Mahua, because my Mahua is going to be different from the varieties of tribal Mahua that's going to be, you'll find out there. I put my signature on it because that I'm responsible for. So my Mahua and the Mahua liqueur that I've created out of it, which is completely my own brainchild, meaning I had fun with Mahua. I liked the spirit. I said, wow, it's got a nice floral bouquet. Let me see what I can do that combines with floral stuff. So I thought about honey, which again is flower-based, and some spices just for fun. Right? So it turns out that my Mahua is excellent for cocktails, and that's why bartenders who have encountered it in the past 3 months since I've released it have been taking it to different parts of the country and creating all kinds of cocktails out of it. It blends into just about anything because of its flower-like nature. And you can drink it with soda to get that whiff. It's almost like it picks up the alcohol in the bouquet and brings it to your nose. Soda, or with flavored sodas, it's great with tonic water, with ginger ale, all this good quality wine. And it's terrific with fresh fruit juices. It always comes through as an aftertaste. I've even tried it with coffee and tea. I tried it with ice cream. And you try it with anything, it fits in. It's great for all the stuff you use rum for example, cakes, sweets. I've tried it in different ways. And then shots with ice cream.
Thank you. I've got the last question on Regan Hendricks, and that's the final one. And he put 2 hands up and begged for his bit of money as well.
Okay, this is a little technical question to Desmond ji. Desmond, basically any fermentation and distillation, when you do it in a pot still, you get a small minuscule percentage of methyl alcohol. Now when you're doing your Mahua, if you're fermenting with your flowers, there is a greater chance of methanol formation because you're using the flowers during your fermentation. So have you checked and what is your percentage of methanol in that?
Yeah, so here I'm going to let you into a secret which I was astonished to find that the methanol content of Mahua is almost negligible. It's brilliant. I mean, which allows for us to actually talk about, it's not something we've invented, but people have been describing the high they get out of Mahua, at least the stuff that I've been making, people who've tried it describe it as a happy high. Because methanol is a big, among all the various congeners that are non-alcoholic and alcohol, methanol is the biggest culprit in terms of giving headaches. So, as it turns out, Mahua gives you a very low methanol content. In fact, I've been looking at some parallel studies because I couldn't believe it, how low it was. And all of them claim that there's next to no methanol. So I'm waiting for the jury to come in. It's out at the moment, but I'm letting you into a secret. And that Mahua is pretty special that way. And I'm guessing that it's a very low methanol. It's of course the way you distill, of course. you've got to be throwing up heads and all of that stuff, which I do. Otherwise, probably the methanol levels would be higher. I'm going for low methanol content. All my alcohol has very low methanol content. Mahua is particularly low.
I'd just like to respond that the way it's done in tribal communities, there are no heads or tails or hearts, right? So it's done in very small quantities. Like the largest sort of container they would use would be about 10 liters to 20 liters. It sort of varies between that. Surprisingly, the alcohol that is drunk by the people here is usually a single distilled, so it's like a product. Only in special cases the cost goes up, the price also increases. They do a second or a third distill. Now the first distill and second or the third distill, surprisingly, you can drink quite a bit and not get any headaches the next day. And I found it quite surprising. And I also checked with a few people who were diabetic. They drank 3 or 4 pegs of it, and next morning their sugar levels hadn't really shot up like they would with a whiskey or with a beer or something. It's possible. But yeah, but that's not I'm saying that's not really a indication. But still, it's a strange thing. I mean, it's just what I noticed.
With any brew, like a carbohydrate or a wine, or something that's just been fermented, it will contain sugars, it will contain some carbohydrates, and those turn into sugar, that will affect its sugar levels. There are claims being made for agave that have been, agave specifically, you may have seen this kind of bullshit in the papers, where they say agave tequila is good for diabetics. It's not good. I've been trying to debunk this by writing to whichever newspaper publishes some rubbish like that and saying this is all nonsense. In fact, they're claiming that the sugars from which agave sugars, the agave and the starches from which sugars are formed are very, very good for because they are fructose based and they want to metabolize and so on and so forth. Actually, in a finished product, in a double distilled tequila or an agave spirit like I make, there should be 0 sugars. If there's any sugar, you've got a problem.
Anyway, I think that calls a lively evening and very thought-provoking. I think it was really intense and heavy. For a lot of people, for me as well, sometimes listening to all these things. And for all of us on the panel, on this side of the audience, we've been reading and talking to ourselves. It's great that we can interact with everyone, share our knowledge. I think the calls for a drink. Yeah.